Hello and welcome to this webinar with Joe McArthur from shareyourpaper.org about automating repository deposit workflows. It's going to be an interactive discussion, also with presentation and live demo. So over to you, John.
Thanks, Irina. And thank you to IFOR again for the chance to sort of follow up on our on the talk that we gave a month or two. I've sort of completely forgotten how long ago it was, but it was really enjoyable to get to speak to the IFOR membership and to talk about how hopefully Share Your Paper can be of use. And it sounded like there was enough interest from that talk to sort of do a second follow-up and sort of talk a little bit more about the details of getting things set up and getting it working for your particular situation. So that's what we're going to do a little bit today. So let me get the screen share going. Oh dear, here it is. So hopefully folks can see that. Irina, can you just give me a little perfect. Great. So today we're going to focus on talking about setting up Share Your Paper for libraries. And for those of you who may have forgotten from last time, I'm Joe McArthur. I'm the co-founder and director of OA Works. But one thing that you may now be asking yourself is, who is OA Works? And that would be a good question. Between the last time we were speaking to IFL and this time we have done a massive rebrand of the open access button. After 8 years working under the name of our first product, we have sort of entirely rebranded, and now the organization that builds Share Your Paper is OA Works. So a bit of a change, but the thing to know is that sort of under the hood, the people involved are the same, and really, the spirit of our mission and our approach to things is the same as well. With this rebrand, we've tried to articulate things in a stronger way that more sort of fully matches what we think and feel as an organization. But for all intents and purposes, we are the same folks that you spoke to a month or two ago. We've just found better ways to talk about it. So nowadays we would say OA Works is a nonprofit building tools so that open access is easy and equitable. They are still free, open source, and co-designed with the community. And so just to continue to sort of hammer home this message, sort of so OA Works now builds Share Your Paper, but it still also builds the open access button, where of course we got the original name for the organization. Just now that's one of our products rather than one of our products, and also the name of the organization. So hopefully clearing things up a little bit there. And I consider that a little bit of a sort of public service announcement that I will be starting every talk for the next year with. Today, what I want to focus on is the process of setting up shareyourpaper.org. So that will come in about 4 parts. I'll do a little recap of what we said last time, just to refresh folks' memory. I'll give a little setup, a little overview of the setup, sort of how does it work at a high level. And then I'll do a sort of live walkthrough of what it looks like to set up Share Your Paper, and talk you through the nitty-gritty of that as we go. And then finally, we'll cover some frequently asked questions and things like that. At sort of every juncture here, I'll sort of stop screen sharing and take questions, and we can have little bits of discussion with folks on the call, and I'd really love that. And so one thing I'd say is sort of as questions come up into your mind, feel free to put them into the chat or the Q&A system that's set up in Zoom at the moment, and in either sort of when we can address those questions as I pause and sort of, if needed, go into some deep discussions of those, and even sort of what things might look like in your particular context or things like that. This is a small session, so I'm really happy to sort of stray from the slides and the demos, and sort of also just have discussions with folks as that is helpful.
And you could also raise your hand and ask your question, because we're a small group, so we can talk. If you prefer talking to writing, please raise your hand.
Absolutely. Thank you, Irina. That's a very good suggestion. Yeah, so that's great. So that's our plan for the day. Let's do a little bit of a recap of what Share Your Paper is, how it works, and what some of the benefits are. So this talk again really builds on the talk that we did last time to Eiffel. So we're not going to cover the basics of Share Your Paper in depth again, and sort of the author-facing workflow. We're really going to talk about what it's like for a library to manage the system. So Irina, I think you've got the link to the last recording. For folks who maybe would like a deeper refresher of Share Your Paper, I would point you to that link. Again, for now, we'll just sort of focus on the setup process. But here's a quick reminder. So the idea of Share Your Paper is to make the deposit process for authors and for libraries who may be doing it, who may be self-archiving on authors' behalf, really, really easy. And to do that without sacrificing lots of the things that our community cares about, like making sure that things in repositories are legal and that they have high quality metadata. What you're seeing on the left here is a little demo for what the one part of the deposit workflow looks like for authors. And then, it starts with a very simple landing page that expresses the benefits of self-archiving, making your research visible and getting more citations, an invitation to put in a DOI to the article. And then behind the scenes, we will check that we'll find all the metadata for the article. We'll check if it's open access or not, which helps define what deposit routes are appropriate for your repository. And then we check the permissions to find out what is legal to deposit and under what terms. We then feed that back to the author in the form of sort of simple instructions for how to find their author accepting manuscript. So, it's not the PDF from the journal site, or, make sure there's not publisher logos in it, things like that, author-friendly language, and invite them to simply upload that author accepting manuscript. They don't need to sign up and get any accounts, put in any metadata. They just need to do the one thing that only authors can do, which is provide the research. We'll then make sure that what they provide is in line with all the relevant policies, publisher policies, funder policies, affiliation, institutional open access policies, and then if all of those checks come back successfully, we will put it into a repository with all of the metadata that we have available and provide the authors a link, which means instant satisfaction for them and much less work for the library. So that's a quick reminder for folks who just wanted a refresher. And I think, as we start to talk about all the details here, it's useful to just remind ourselves of sort of why bother? Why should we think about doing all of this work anyway? And, I think one of the most compelling reasons comes from Leila Sternum, who was our co-designer and our partner in building Share Your Paper. And in her words, Share Your Paper really radically decreased the amount of time that she had to spend managing the deposit workflow for authors and doing outreach for it. So she was spending, anywhere around 2.5 days for about 100 articles. And now she's spending 2.5 hours. And that's it's a pretty big decrease in the amount of time needed to manage the deposit workflow. And that means, of course, that you can work to self-archive a lot more articles. And that's really what Share Your Paper is about. So if you want to learn more about this, again, there's that talk, but you can also go to shareyourpaper.org/libraries, where we have lots of information about the system in general and sort of its benefits. as well. So again, I'll sort of point you to there for most background questions and things like that. But having reached the end of that section, I want to make sure that folks are still following and on board. So if I can figure out how to get back to Zoom, here we go. Happy to answer any questions or if folks have them.
I don't see any questions yet, sir.
Happy to give folks a moment just to think and pause. Hopefully that's a quick refresher for folks. But if there's anything big on people's minds, I'm very happy to cover it.
Yeah, looks like everything is clear so far.
Looks all good. All right. Okay, we'll steam along. Right. Whoops, here we go. All right, we should be back at the setup overview. Perfect. So that's a little bit about the benefits Share Your Paper provides, a quick reminder. Let's talk about how to actually get it set up at a high level. So the setup process is all mediated through an online system. You don't need to come and talk to us, although you certainly can. There's support available if needed, but it's meant to be enabled through a very simple sort of setup wizard, where you just sort of type in what you want or click a few buttons and the system will respond and sort of get that set up on your behalf. All of that can be found today at this URL, shareyourpaper.org/setup. Hopefully relatively easy to remember. One thing that we worked really hard on was making sure that the setup was an easy process. So again, in the words of our partner, setup was easy. Layla is not a developer, but was able to sort of get this set up in under 10 minutes. While I think that will certainly helped a little bit by having been involved in the development process, we certainly sort of didn't coach her very much on the setup process. But what we did do is work really hard to make sure that it was easy for folks without technical support at their library, i.e. sort of on-staff developers or access to development expertise, or without having spent a lot of time in their life coding themselves, in order to get this set up. That was really, really important to us because we wanted to make sure that this sort of, this was as easy for libraries to set up and run as it was for authors to use. It's as easy to set up as it is to deposit. That was one of our sort of first goals. So we tried to not sort of skimp on doing that and leave folks with a sort of poor process, because we would like folks to be able to set it up and not have that limited just to major institutions with lots of ability to sort of bring in technical support and things like that. And the way we do that is by we have this online setup process. We walk you through the process of providing basic details like your contact information, your repository name, and then more complicated things like how do you want your deposit workflow to operate? So we call those your deposit preferences. So, what do you want to happen when content is already open access? What do you want to happen when content can't be deposited into your repository? What do you want to happen? What are your sort of those sorts of cases where you might need a workflow that depends on your preferences. And then also making the tool responsive to your open access policies. If you worked hard to put in place institutional open access policies that enable your authors to self-archive, we want to make sure the tool reflects those, so you can adjust those too. And then finally, sort of making sure that it gets it can be integrated with your repository smoothly and put on your website. And all of those are sort of drag and drop sort of experiences as well. So I think it's probably just worth me going straight onto our live walkthrough, but I did just want to give a little bit of high-level information about what we were sort of hoping to achieve with this process. So I'm sure folks have lots of questions about the nitty-gritty, but I will stop as promised and take on any just high-level questions folks have.
please write in the chat or in Q&A or raise a hand if there are high-level questions.
All right, perfect. I'm not expecting many questions at this stage, so this is all going pretty much to plan. Right, so I want to give folks a live walkthrough. So let me just change screens and start to show things off a little bit. So so this is all going to be basically sort of in the realm of a live demo and walkthrough of this. So who knows what will happen, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And if things aren't, then I'll talk through what's going on and we'll sort of get through it. So I want to show you the sort of start point and the end point of this process first. You know, having clicked on shareyourpaper.org/setup, I would end up here. This is the setup portal for the tool, and where we start to get you going on getting the tool working for you. So this is sort of the start. The end is that the tool is on your web page. So this is Montana State once again, and here you can see that a sort of familiar set of words, buttons, and boxes, hopefully, where you can see Share Your Paper is on their website. This is the montana.edu website, and it's branded to look like they built this tool themselves. You know, it's got similar buttons, it's got similar text colors and things like that. It would be hard to distinguish if the library didn't build this itself. And that was really important to us because we wanted to make sure that the relationship that you had with your authors and your depositors was yours. It's not something that we want to be in the middle of necessarily. It's just something that we want to support being stronger and easier to manage. This is sort of the end goal, is that it's on your website with your brand, and under the hood here, Montana has set up some of its preferences. For example, its repository name is ScholarWorks, and some of these routes lead to Montana specific links. So this is sort of our end goal, which I hope is an exciting place to get to. And in about 7 minutes, we'll be there, or a little longer, because I'm going to go slowly and talk through everything step by step. So going back to the start, we're at the setup portal. There's nothing that you need to pay or do to get here. You can optionally log in if you want, and that just helps save your setup process and progress. And things like that. I've already done that. It's quite boring. You just put in your email and then you get walked through the process. But there's sort of 3 things to note on the user interface here. On the left-hand side, you'll see again sort of another instance of Share Your Paper. This is a preview of what your version of the tool is going to do. So at various points, this will respond based on what you're adjusting, and it'll show you what's happening, and help you be able to test things out in a safe environment where sort of you can't break anything and you can't do anything sort of that might be embarrassing. And on the right-hand side, you've got the various links, buttons, and instructions that will help walk you through the process of getting this set up. And then right at the top, one of the most important things is a note that, hey, this is a self-setup system, but if you want some help is available. So you can come and schedule time to talk with me or our team, and you can also send us emails, report problems, anything that you think isn't ideal, and we're very likely to change it for you. So those are the 3 major parts. Left-hand side is a preview, right-hand side is instructions, and right at the top is help if you need it. So with that in mind, there's a few big areas that I want to highlight as we go, and we'll sort of go through these sequentially, and I'll talk you through what's going on and what's possible in the tool. So there's sort of 4 or 5 big things that we think folks want to do. The first is show your paper integrated with their repository. The second is adjust those deposit preferences. What do you want to happen in certain circumstances? Of course, then there's putting in your open access policy if you have one, adjusting, getting it onto your website and getting it themed with your brand, and then being able to do outreach and things like that, and pilot the tool. So I'm going to walk through one of the simpler ones to get us started, and then we'll sort of go through these step by step. So the deposit preferences are where you can tweak small details about the tool, for example, what the name of your repository is. So, for the sake of this demo, we're going to do the i4 repository. I know that probably doesn't sort of exist under that name, but for the sake of it, we will we'll move through the process like that. And then, of course, we know that institutions often have terms and conditions that they need to be agreed to during the signing process. So, we will put some of those in as we go. Of course, this also doesn't exist. And then finally, we know that this is often not the only way that you want to be able to deposit things. And also you need to be able to support deposit options that don't have DOIs. And so in that case, you can let people use, you can give people a link to those places. So let's do that again. Again, these are just for examples. So we can save those and continue with the setup process. And what you'll now see, if we go back, is that I could have called this something better, but now the text of the service has changed to make it clear that this is for i4, and we've got links here that will go to. Oops, it's actually not quite worked. So what I get for not reading the instructions. It seems fairly committed to using my address. Oh, I know what it's doing. So yeah, so this is actually going to the right little Eiffel spot, but it's using a different email. So now this is using the address that I signed up with in order to mediate that. So moving along, we've adjusted some of the text and some of the links in the service. So now we want to be able to adjust things like what happens when under different deposit scenarios. So one of the things that often will happen is that there is content that is already open access and that you want authors to be able to deposit into the repository, or that you don't want authors to be able to deposit into the repository. Some repositories want that content and some do not, and that's something that the tool tries to respond to. So, for instance, here is the response that we give when we find that a paper is already open access and so could be put into the repository. In those cases, rather than asking for the author to give the copy again and things like that, which means they need to go to the website, download it, and upload it, all we do is get confirmation that the author is happy to do that by having them put in their email. And then in the background, we will send you that content. But you might not want that to happen. And so if you want to turn off the ability to deposit already open access content into the repository, it's very easy. You click that that's what you want. And then it will, the preview updates to show you that now a different response will be shown, and that this is that response. So now we will just say, great, you've already got this freely available content. You don't need to do anything else. And that lets authors know that they're already getting the benefits of open access, and they don't need to worry. We can continue this process with different deposit types and things like that. I won't walk through all of them because they all work in a very similar way, but that's the gist of that process. So before, I can see there's one or two comments. So before we dive any deeper into these other workflows, I'll just pause and see if there's any questions. That was a lot of stuff. So again, I just want to pause if anyone has any questions at this stage.
I was wondering whether you could show again quickly when you are at the setup page, when you select repository, and then what do you click next? Because there are different options. Like it says manually, one by one, bulk uploads. Yes. So maybe if you
next. I'll do that in just a moment. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll do that in just a moment. Okay. So we're back at the main page. So we've got our deposit preferences set up so that you know it's saying it's going to deposit into the right repository, and it's got the right terms and things like that. Now let's talk through some of these options for how content actually gets into your repository. There's two big ways that we do this. So there's sort of 5 options, but I'm going to put them into 2 groups to help folks think about this. The first of those is by default, we put all content first into Zenodo. Zenodo is a open source, general purpose repository that's very effective for a very effective general purpose repository. And importantly, has a very good API that allows deposit. So we deposit all content into there. And then our goal is to provide lots of different import mechanisms that then allow the content to get from Zenodo into your repository. The reason we do that is because it means that it's easy for us to provide that instant satisfaction with for authors, because we can deposit it there immediately. And 2, it allows us to provide many different ways that even without a complex sort of integration, you can get content into your repository. So it allows us to do both of those things. And of course, it also means that there's one extra copy of the work in the wild. And as you know, as the saying goes, lots of copies keep stuff safe. And so it helps with preservation, discovery, and things like that. So the first way is we put things into Zenodo, and then we allow things to get into your repository using these methods. The other big way is that we can direct deposit into your repository without putting it into Zenodo, and sort of adjust how we do that to suit your various deposit workflows and needs. That way is also listed here, and I'll talk about that. The one catch with that is that it is the one paid part of this tool, because it takes time on our part to coordinate with you, get the integration working and maintain that over time. It's the one part of this tool that is generally a paid for part of the service. And again, it's just because it literally costs us time and money in order to implement that, whereas everything else we try and provide that to everyone for free forever. So let's talk through these sequentially. So the first option, if you're a small repository and you're sort of handling, you know, a few deposits here and there, but you don't sort of have a huge volume, the first way that we support for you to get deposits into your files into your repository is we will simply email them to you along with all the information that you need to put into the repository. So the way that would work is when the author deposits, would go into Zenodo, they would get that link, and then what you would get is an email a little bit like this. So you get a clear subject line just saying this is a deposit that got put in, and we tell you for what paper it was and all of the metadata that we found for that paper. And again, we just provide that in what we hope is really relatively simple format to copy and paste into your repository. And this covers both the metadata associated with the paper, the permissions that we checked for it, the file check information. So we just read you out all of the information that we know about this particular piece of work and give you a variety of other sort of places to then go and get that file. And of course, we give you the file itself. So the idea is that you don't need to do anything after you get this email, aside from copy and paste this information into your repository whenever is convenient. The file is already in Zenodo. The author has the link. It is completely sort of time independent now. You can do it whenever you have a moment, but authors have got that instant satisfaction with the tool. So that is the first way that we do things, and that's something that seems to work for a good number of institutions who handle deposits on a case-by-case basis, and that's great. We're really happy to support that. The other way that we do things is if you have a few more deposits, so a few dozen a week or something like that, where doing it one by one might get a little bit tedious. We can provide you an export of all of the deposits that you've been given as a CSV, and then those can be uploaded as can be uploaded through bulk import mechanisms that are built into most major repository platforms. Again, I should have opened this beforehand, but it's the danger of live demos. For instance, again, the information here is very similar. It's just tuned a little bit. So, everything from journal volumes, issues, publisher names, sort of the same information that you saw before, but now it's in a spreadsheet, and this is available, hundreds of deposits at a time, and you can filter these obviously by date and things like that. So that's the next major way. And again, sort of the key here is that it's all going into Zenodo, and we want to be able to get things ingested into your repository using existing mechanisms that you probably have built into the repository. Moving out of the sort of manual deposit workflows here, where you as a staff member are getting some file, some email from us, and uploading from there are automated ways that you can run this workflow. They're of course a little bit more involved, but hopefully not that much more involved. So one of the first is that rather than providing you an email of all of the metadata and files, what we can provide you with is an OAI PMH feed. And some repositories have ways to automatically ingest content from these feeds and then get that into the repository. And so we can provide you with one of those feeds, and whenever there is a deposit, it will be picked up on whatever schedule that tool is running and ingested into your repository again. To do this, we leverage the feed from Zenodo just so that we didn't have to rebuild something that works really very well. But there is also a slightly more powerful, although a custom API that just runs off of our tool and will give you a feed again, all of the deposits. This has some slight advantages over OAI PMH, but it would mean that you'd need to do a custom integration with the API, which again, this means that it's probably better for even bigger institutions than any of the previous methods. So finally, well, not quite finally. So those are all the sort of main methods that we provide. And again, those are intended to cover from the smallest use cases to the largest use cases. Again, all for free. The one that isn't is this direct deposit option. And in this option, it works exactly like how you think it might work. In this case, you will need to reach out to us and we'll negotiate a way to sort of get this work done. And we can get that deposited into your repository based on Sword, based on some custom API that you would like, or other approaches, for example, providing things in the simple archive format for DSpace. So we're really happy to do this with folks. And then, the goal would be that, the links that we provide through the tool are immediately to your repository. And again, things go into your repository without you needing to necessarily make any more steps, and things wouldn't go into Zenodo. So that's the other way. The final thing, and one thing that really excites us, but I tend to leave out of the initial sort of description, is that Share Your Paper also supports doing deposits, even if you don't have a local repository. And that's because, of course, we deposit into a repository already. It's Zenodo. And what you can do in Zenodo is set up little communities that allow you to theme deposits with your brand and allow search and discovery of sort of a subset of those deposits, for example, for your institution. And what this means is you can get a lot of sort of the features of a repository and a lot of the benefits of a repository without needing to move through the process of setting one up locally, hosting it, and managing it, which can be really quite difficult and is a barrier to sort of promoting self-archiving for many institutions. So one thing that we're sort of really keen to support is allowing folks to promote self-archiving on their campus and get a lot of the benefits of that without some of the downsides. And this isn't a part of the Share Your Paper tool. All credit goes to Zenodo, but it's something that we wanted to shout out and support because we know that it's a challenge that a lot of institutions face. And so it's something that we are really thankful to Zenodo for building and keen to support. So that's, I'm going to take another pause. There's lots of other things to show, great. Do we have any written tutorials so that we can share with some of the academic staff and research center members? The only tutorial that exists is the tutorial that you're seeing, where we sort of talk through each of these steps in the user interface itself. We try and make that, we'll sort of, if there are things that are unclear, we try and fix that copy or that text so that we don't need a sort of separate tutorial and then a tutorial here as well. So if there's anything we could do to make the pages that you're seeing better, we'd really love to hear that, obviously. But at the moment, we don't have plans sort of totally separate tutorials that would sort of anything that we would say there, we would probably just try and say in the main system. But that's a good question.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. I was also wondering about this programmatically depositing via OAPMH. If it's deposited on Zenodo, metadata schema is schema.org, and most people here are from DSpace repositories and it's Dublin core. Do you have a converter that would make it easy to re-upload in DSpace? Well, how exactly does it work?
We don't have one yet. No, I believe that Zenodo will export in multiple formats, but doubling core may not be one of them. If that was a barrier to using this route, we would certainly be interested in making a little converter that would wrap that in sensible formats for folks. We've offered this a few times and no one has come to us and said they wanted it. But if that's something that people would be interested in and it would sort of be the barrier sort of to getting them using the tool, then we would absolutely be willing to put that in the roadmap and sort of support that for folks. And that's one of the advantages of potentially sort of our API as well, as sort of it is a little bit more granular, so and able to be filtered and used in that way. So that's one of the advantages of our API. You'll have to forgive my slight lack of knowledge for exactly the formats that Zenodo will spit out data in. I know it's several, but I'm not sure if it solves this particular problem. We could have a look though, since we're live demoing.
Thanks a lot.
It's a good question though. All right, cool. I must be doing a half decent job. All right, so let's get back to it. Right, so let's imagine that we have gotten our deposit. We've chosen a deposit route. We've adjusted our deposit preferences. One thing that we could do next is have the tool be sensitive to the institutional open access policy. So if you have a Harvard style, as they're often referred to, or a rights retention institutional open access policy at your institution, you can have the tool respond to that accordingly. So I actually haven't gotten one here, but all you need to do is find what's called your research organization registry ID, which it sounds easier than it is easier than it sounds. You just sort of go to their website, search your institution's name, and you will get a feed of you'll get your ID here, and you can copy that into the tool. And what that will mean is your version of the deposit workflow will respond accordingly. So for instance, if you had a rights retention policy, this response would turn from you need to do a dark deposit into you can deposit the author accepting manuscript or even the publisher PDF if you retained rights to do that. So I won't do that today, but just to save time for a couple of other pieces. But I just want to let folks know that is possible. So we've gone through the setup process here and configured things. Now what I want to show is how we get out of this system and onto your website. And the way that works is all you need to do is copy and paste this piece of code onto your website. So I'm going to show that for you just now. So what this does is it sort of calls in the various snippets of code that people need. So hold on, just quickly. So I'm going to copy it into a new website that we built for this demo. It's a very simple website. It's basically blank, other than announcing itself as being for the Eiffel demo. So I'm going to go into my content management system, which can be libguides, it can be a little, whatever my library uses to build our websites. Sometimes this will be a coding system. And I'm just going to copy and paste in the code. And then I'm going to commit my changes. All of this is just, the various sort of trivial bits of the system. You don't need to worry about this. But in just a moment, what we will see is that the page will update with Share Your Paper, and it will take just a moment. But in the meantime, I'll talk through what this piece of code does. All this does is it calls in the code required to run the tool. What that means is we can update that in the background, and you won't need to worry about sort of hosting the tool or pushing updates or anything like that. We run this code. And it also copies in your config or sort of the various options that you've chosen about how you want the tool to work. So for instance, here you can see that the name of it is IFL. This is the email address that I set up to run this demo. We've turned OA deposit off, and we've got our terms in here as well. So this looks a bit scary, but really it's just saying how to configure the tool. And now the website is updated, and what you can see is that the tool is here, and sort of it does things. It works just like the version on the website. And this will be hosted and updated in the background for free, and sort of deposit into your repository if that's what you've configured it to do. So to take it one step further, we've now got it on our website, but of course you probably want it to look like your brand. So how does that work? Well, what we do is when you embed it on one of your pages, we automatically pick up the sort of brand of your website. So again, you don't need to do any of the changes that I'm about to see, but I wanted to show you a bit of a before and after. So on this little web page, I've already put in some of the styles from another website, just so that you can see what this will look like. Normally, these are already there. You don't need to change those, do anything with those. It will just sort of already have them there. So you still just need to copy and paste the piece of code. But for the sake of this demo, I wanted to give an opportunity for you to see it. Now the web page is updated, and you can see that the fonts, the colors, the buttons are all now have all now changed, and Share Your Paper now responds in line with that brand. So you don't need to configure the branding or mess around with colors and button sizes or do anything complicated like that. That all happens in the background on your behalf. So one last trick that I wanna show you all. So we've now got all of these basic setup processes working. The idea now is that you can use the tool. For instance, if you wanted to run a pilot, which we would certainly love folks to do, you can very quickly spin up a notice on the page that says, hey, we're doing something a little bit different. If you want to, you can use this to deposit articles. It should be faster and better and all those things. And you can sort of give feedback or go back to the old way of doing things, which of course many folks will want to if they don't want to learn a new tool. And then the next thing that we provide is the option to, this actually takes a minute to update, so it's not really designed to be done seconds later. But let's do this. We want to make it really, really easy for folks to do outreach using the tool. And so what we'll provide you with is a bunch of ready-made links where you can basically, if you're doing outreach to authors, you can send them direct links to their papers so that they can see so they don't even need to put in DOIs or anything like that. And the page I just showed you would walk you through those eventually, but it takes a couple of minutes to recognize that you're on a certain location and give you links accordingly. So forgive that. And so that now is where I promised we would end up. We've now got a tool that looks It looks a little bit like this. It's not on the Metana website because I don't have access to that. That's their website, but I hope you can see it looks pretty similar. And forgive me the sort of lack of some of the other pieces here. But that is now a working tool with your brand, your deposit preferences, and that can deposit into your repository as you would like. And that is the setup process for Share Your Paper. As folks would be depositing, you would be notified either in those bulk deposit spreadsheets, in emails, or through the various APIs that are available. And hopefully your authors are happy. And that is I have some more slides for various questions and answers that folks often have. But that's the meat of the process and some of the things that are going on behind the scenes. So probably our final chance for questions now. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Joe. That was perfect.
And the live demo went off more or less without a hitch. Amazing.
It went wonderful. So
the website,
even I feel reassured, and I don't really have programming knowledge.
Yeah,
so
right.
So maybe I'll just do a quick recap about the steps, and as you can see, colleagues, it's really easy. So we go to the setup page, then we click deposit preferences, and well, of course, before we log in, then we click deposit preferences, and that's where we add name of our repository, URL, contact email, etc. Then after that, we go back to the setup page. We click repository, and then we select one of the workflows. And as Joe explained, if it's manual one by one over email, you'll receive an email when an author deposits, and you can copy and paste metadata fields from an email into your repository, and you'll get a file, so you can take that file and upload it. Then there is bulk upload spreadsheet. If you expect a lot of deposits, programmatic interface using OAPMH or an API. And then some other options, direct deposit, but that's an option that you'll have to reimburse OAWOX for which. So that's the only one which won't be free. And then when you select your preferred deposit workflow, you go back to the setup page and you click, you can add a policy if you have one, and that's a policy page. And to finish up, you click website and brand. And that's where you get a snippet of code, which you can put either in your DSpace repository homepage design or libguide or library website or any other page. But yeah, that even for me, it looks very clear. And I don't know how it is for other colleagues. And if you have any questions, but I think that's perfect.
Perfect. I mean, the next time if we do this again next time, we should have your round where you try and do it as quickly as possible. I love that idea. It'd be quite amusing. Yeah, I'm conscious of we're sort of at time, and so I just want to say, if folks want to reach out and discuss this more, I'm really happy to do that. And just for now, I really appreciate folks' time and interest in the tool. We're really excited to have this to work with IFL members and IFL at large too, to have this help with self-archiving. And I would say, if folks want this to do direct deposit into your repository, but you're sort of worried about the cost portion, I'd encourage you to still get in touch. We're pretty flexible with these things. And really our end goal is to help upgrade your deposit workflow. So if cost is barrier to that, I would say sort of don't don't let that stop you reaching out. I'm sure we can figure something out. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, I guess.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I hope in a month's time we'll have a couple of integrations.
That'd be
at least
exciting.
with 8 repositories. We have people on the call today.
Or in the next 7 minutes. Lovely.
Thank you so much. Maybe last chance for questions or comments. Thanks a million, Joe, and thank you everyone for attending today. As we said in the beginning, it's collaboration and conversation. So Joe is available. I'm also available to help if needed. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day and a great week.
Perfect. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.